Welcome to Good Faith Reads. I'm your host, Jana Peterson, one of the Ernest C. Hines Jr. interns at Good Faith Media. Good Faith Reads is a short podcast released twice a month in which we focus on one of our book authors at Good Faith Media. We've published more than 100 titles under our Nurturing Faith book imprint, and we invite you to check them out at goodfaithmedia.org/bookstore. Today's guest is Jeff Hampton, author of Together, Thoughts and Stories About Living in Community. He's joining us remotely from Garland, Texas. Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks. I'm delighted to be here. I'm also delighted to be part of one of those 100 or plus titles you have.
Yeah, so glad you're with us. So one of our standard questions we ask our authors at Good Faith Reads is, could you tell our listeners in a couple of sentences just what your book is about?
Well, sure. It's a collection of short essays, which really are blogs that I wrote for my church over a 10-year period that deal with the notion of community, what that means, and how we interact with each other in our various communities. Some of the essays are stories from my own experiences. Some are thoughts on current events. Sometimes the message or point is very evident, and sometimes it's more subtle and requires some thought.
Was there any critical experience in your life that shaped your need or desire to write this book?
Not a critical life experience, but instead an interesting life opportunity. Probably about 10 years ago, the associate pastor at our church invited some of us who are writers or comfortable with writing to contribute weekly blogs on the church's Facebook page. So I jumped at the opportunity, and a couple of years ago, my wife suggested that perhaps I could compile some of these writings in a book. I was beginning to write and publish fiction, not mostly novels and short stories. So we had publishing on our minds. I was a little skeptical about the idea. So she started going back and rereading the blogs and identifying what she thought were the strongest or most interesting. And in that process, we discovered this theme of community that I seem to touch on more often than not. After that, it became a matter of light editing to turn blogs into essays that are more timeless to potential readers, and then to find a publisher willing to give it a chance.
That's really lovely. It's so amazing how some of the beautiful things in life emerge from what you're already doing in the world.
Right. This was totally unexpected.
Yeah. Hey, the subtitle of your book is Thoughts and Stories About Living in Community. Could you share with our listeners what you think of community, or how you might define that and what it means to you?
Well, as it turns out, and as I've learned, a community is any group in which you interact on a regular basis. In the context of this book, that includes our family, which is our first community, our close friends, our neighbors on the street where we live, the folks we live with in our town, our city, our state, our country, and then our human family, and that's a community every human that's ever lived has been a part of, and then the kingdom of God. And so at all those different levels of community, we have opportunities to contribute for the better or the worse of the community, not to mention the opportunity to learn and grow.
Thanks so much for that. We'll be back in 30 seconds with more of our Good Faith Read.
Lot Carey is proud to bring you conversations with some of the best and brightest pastors coast to coast. Our new podcast, Pilgrimages of Striving and Thriving, delivers wisdom from the Black church for the whole church. Find us wherever you get your podcast or listen online at lotcarey.org. That's LOTTCAREY.org. We look forward to the pilgrimage with you.
Welcome back to Good Faith Reads. Today we're joined remotely by Jeff Hampton, author of Good Faith Media book Together, thoughts and stories about living in community. And I'm Jana Peterson, one of the spring 2021 interns at Good Faith Media. Hey, Jeff, could you tell us a little bit about your writing process? What was that process like?
Yeah, well, I'm still working as a freelance writer with numerous assignments on my plate. So I have to weave what I'd call my creative writing between all of that. So I don't really have daily goals, and instead I write in bursts as the ideas come to me or as a story I'm working on unfolds. But this book is different because it came from that other process I talked about, and that was writing weekly blogs for my church. And so for that, I had set a personal goal to contribute something every week. And that has not been a requirement, but that's what I've done. It may be a bit obsessive compulsive, but I also believe it stems from my early newspaper days when I walked into the newsroom every day and I found a pile of assignments on my desk that I had to chase down and write that day. So in the case of writing these weekly blogs, some weeks a thought or idea pops up and the words just come rolling out. Other times I really struggle. I try to at least always have some fragments of ideas to work with. And to do that, I'm constantly making notes, usually on my iPhone, as thoughts and phrases come to me. I may see something or hear something and jot it down because I think there is something there to explore. And then other times there will be something in the news or I'll attend an event and there will be something there that just sweeps me off my feet and I write about it. A lot of times my wife will ask me, well, what are you blogging about this week? And I say, I don't know. and quite often that is absolutely the case, but always something will come up and it comes together.
That's great. That's encouraging to hear. Do you have a favorite story from your book that you'd like to share with us here?
Well, I'm not really sure I have a favorite, certainly not an absolute favorite, but I'm a bit of an amateur musician. I was in the band in high school, and our church has a wind ensemble that I play in. And I seem to find a lot of illustrations about community coming from music and performance. I also love song lyrics, and so I'm prone to quote those from time to time. But I don't have an absolute favorite, but I have one titled Bravo, the Page Turners. And it is about a violin recital I attended. And while the music was wonderful, I became intrigued by the woman who was turning the pages for the pianist. I knew the pianist and talked to him later, and he confirmed what I thought, that the page turner is a gifted musician herself and knows the music and the two musicians intimately. So not only did she know precisely when to step in and turn the page, she also helped them rehearse and even sorted out some disagreements between them about tempo and things like that. So the story there was about servant leadership and how people we see doing things that may look inconsequential or secondary are actually an integral part of the community.
An important note to all of our listeners, we at Good Faith Media are always accepting book proposals. Our authors engage with an experienced team of editors, designers, and marketers to produce and sell books on a variety of topics. If you have a book proposal you'd like to run by us, head on over to goodfaithmedia.org/bookstore for more information. That's goodfaithmedia.org/bookstore. Jeff, as you think about your readers and as they spend time in your book, lingering with the stories that you've written about what it means to be a community, what's your hope for them?
Well, I hope they may see that they have something important to contribute to whatever community they are interacting with at any given time. And I hope they see in some of my own confessions of failure or falling short that communities can be difficult, and it sometimes takes time and practice to figure out where we best fit in. And I hope that maybe some of the thoughts and stories will provide readers an opportunity to take a break, pause, and maybe consider their place in their various communities.
Our guest today on Good Faith Reads has been Jeff Hampton. author of the Good Faith Media book, Together, Thoughts and Stories About Living in Community. The book, along with more than 100 other titles, is available as both a print book and an ebook at goodfaithmedia.org/bookstore. Jeff, we appreciate you being our guest today. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks, Jana. This has been a delight. I appreciate the opportunity to tell a little bit about my story.